Okay, so here we go. I'm going to share my screen with you, and you have the link to this document in the email. Obviously, you wouldn't be in this class unless you had extremely strong reading comprehension skills. So I don't want to walk you through everything, but I do want to call your attention to a couple of things in this document. Okay, so the syllabus is a very lengthy document, and it's very redundant to this. I have to finish a few things up. Basically, I have to wait until I grade the summer assignments until I enter some things in on there. I will send that to you. Our first in-service day is Monday, August 21st. I will have completed grading your summer assignments by the previous Sunday, August 20th, and we'll have returned them all to you. So my first day back in school officially on Monday, the 21st, I will send you an email and send you a link to the syllabus. I'll also post it on Schoology, which should be up by then. And as I share all of this with you, obviously we follow the rules. Everything is posted on Schoology. But I just want to show you some of the documents that we use that I think will be very helpful to you, okay? So I've shared with you 9-week detail sheets before, and I'm going to go ahead and click on the first 9 weeks detail sheet. And while we post everything on Schoology, this is far superior in that the whole 9 weeks is right there. Now, obviously on the first day, these things I have to upload still because I'm waiting on a couple of logistical items for you. But as you look through here, you obviously know all about the summer assignment exam already, but you can see on this detail sheet, you can click to all of the readings that you have. You can click on the notes. So as we learn about the Constitution here, you can click on the class notes. If you ever miss any day, I type up all of the notes each day, and you can see, well, we talked about the difference between common and codified law. We talked about what sovereignty meant. As we go through, we talk about what federalism is, Article 1, Article 2, Article 3, and we really place it in the context of how it's different from the government of the Revolutionary era. So the notes are there. When there's a reading, whether it's an outside reading, like for Wednesday, I'm just asking you to read the Constitution. There's a link to the reading right there. Whenever you have to read in the textbook, you can take a hard copy of the textbook, but I've converted all the textbook into Google Docs, as you've seen. And the Google Doc is for each individual night's reading. So for Thursday, August 31st, you have to read 9 pages in the textbook about the Constitutional Convention. You click this link and it takes you right to the textbook and those pages that you need to read. You can also see all of the assignments. While all the assignments are posted on Schoology and submitted through Schoology, I'm going to click on our first written assignment, which is one of the skills that we learn is historiography, and this is one woman's interpretation, Sue Davis from the University of Delaware, her interpretation of the Constitution. Basically, she talks about how it's a shift in political thinking from something known as civic humanism, which is worrying about pursuing the public good, to something called Lockean liberalism. And classic liberalism is the exact polar opposite of modern liberalism. Lockean liberalism is my individual rights are protected, and it is protected from any democratic mob taking over the government. So anyways, you read her piece here, and whenever you have writing, I will give you the option. Very few kids take it, but an option of a hard copy of this, or you can read it online, as most students choose to do. So you can access the reading and then see, I gave you a choice, and they're very simple questions to get started off with, right? It's nothing that's too deep. We'll save that till later. But you can either write about, okay, how does this historian explain the Anti-Federalists were against the Constitution? What were their arguments? And how did the Federalists defend the Constitution? And I'm not going to click on each of these, but you can see as you go through here, everything with each assignment is included. And as it goes through, the same thing, you can see, obviously, our next assignment is significantly more work. The Silence, which is about the first debate in the United States, the first Congress, 1790, in which a group of Quakers, which included Ben Franklin, asked Congress to consider abolishing both the international slave trade and basically eliminating slavery itself. And this was quite the ambush. The first Congress did not expect. They thought that the Constitution had resolved the issue of slavery. And, one of the great questions is, there's one republic, guys, this time, one, it's us. And so how did this one republic in the world reconcile its remarkable revolutionary government with the institution of slavery? And so it's a really interesting reading from Gordon Wood, a very respected historian. And so you can just see all of those things that are there. The next week, is there a James Madison problem? And I'm sorry, that's Joseph Ellis that wrote The Silence. Gordon Wood did. Is there a James Madison problem? That's from the book Founding Brothers. And you can go through and see all of the assignments that are in there, and the first 9 weeks detail sheet and the second 9 weeks detail sheet are there for you. Also included on this document is your grade breakdown. I reserve the right to make minor changes, as always, but it will stay pretty true to this. And it tells you here, you can see the summer assignment, the writing piece is worth 3.1% of your grade. This is the written exam. The exam is as another 3% of your grade. And then you can see the grade breakdown for all of the assignments and assessments that we have, bringing us to a total of 939 points for the semester. The next thing that I wanted to show you, this is the new stuff that I put in. So again, teaching student skills. It's one thing to just simply say, that's, be accountable. It's like me telling you to go up there and get a hit. Well, how do I do that? So I reworked everything this summer, which is why it's August 11th and I finally have everything done and can share it with you. So we take an objective exam each 9 weeks, at the end of the first 9 weeks, at the end of the second 9 weeks, third and fourth 9 weeks. Fortunately, we can use the final exam period during the at the end of the first and second semester to take the second 9 weeks exam and the fourth 9 weeks exam. For the first and third, we're kind of stuck. We have to spread it out over 2 days. So I'm going to click on the Master Study Guide. And you can see there are 2 parts. We have part of the test come from what are called stimulus-based multiple choice questions, because those are the questions that are on the AP exam and constitute 55% of the AP exam. And rather than with the summer assignment where you receive these stimulus-based multiple choice questions, now you just receive the stimuli, but I wrote all of these. So they're really tailored to what we've done in class. So I'm going to click on chapter 6. And over the course of the summer, I went through and annotated them. So these replicate what's on the AP exam. So as you can obviously see, the first stimulus is from 1991. It is historical interpretation. And you don't even really need to read the stimulus, because you can see, what's this guy writing about? Gordon Wood, the radicalism of the American Revolution. There's historiography. He believes this is a very radical revolution. If we had plenty of time to do everything, I could hand you histories of the American Revolution that say that it's not at all a radical revolution. In fact, that it's a very conservative revolution. We will look at 2 different historians from this time. But anyways, I gave you a series of lead-in questions with this, and if you can answer these questions, you're going to be able to answer the question that I put on the exam. Number 2 is a primary document from Robert Morris, writing in to the President of the Continental Congress. And again, so that you can study, okay, all right, what problem is Morris identifying? It doesn't take a lot to know what Robert Morris is complaining about in 1782. What does he say needs to be done? And then what historical development brought about the problem Morris described? And I guarantee you that if you answer those 3 questions correctly, you will be able to answer the question that is on the exam correctly. And the question on the exam is not one of those questions, but rather it incorporates all of those ideas that are in there. And so I made this for each chapter, and you can see there were 9. Chapter 6 has a lot more material, so there are 9 stimuli in there. Whereas 10 and 11, we do more with the essay and with some other things. It's not that they're not important. We do a ton of work on chapter 11, but it's just not something, it's assessed in other areas. We can't assess everything in the same way, in the same amount, or we would do nothing but assessing. But you can go through here. And so chapter 9, that's the rise of mass democracy in America. Andrew Jackson, that's kind of an important thing. And you can see, okay, well, the very first stimuli is a drawing, if it loads. Thank you, King Andrew the First. And so it goes through and asks you, let me add that. So you can see that these go through and ask you questions. And okay, if you can answer, is this artist depicting Jackson from the artist is depicting Jackson from the perspective of which party? Like, okay, well, we'll definitely learn that in class. And then if you can answer all of these questions, like what is the significance of how Andrew Jackson is dressed? You know, the fact that he's standing on a torn up Constitution, that he's torn up these internal improvements, including the US Bank, and he's holding a veto message. So again, if you can answer all of these questions, I guarantee you will be prepared for the test question as it is asked. However, we do a lot in class, and we have our traditional multiple choice questions that cover the content that we cover in class, the outside readings. And so, okay, same thing here. I asked you to read the Constitution. And so with each of these questions, I gave you a link to here are the notes from that lesson, just for your convenience. So you can, look up everything. And so example for question number 2, if you can go back, and there's 3 ways that slavery was codified in the Constitution. So, okay, here, let's go back to what we were talking about before. So the first question from the first homework reading, The Political Thought of the Constitution in Early Republic by Dr. Sue Davis, deals with the topic of civic humanism and Lockean liberalism as it relates to the author's interpretation of the Constitution. Kind of already gave you the answer to that one. But to guarantee that you get this question right, and all I can do, guys, is put you in a position to be successful. But there's no way, and I did, I don't know, probably 15 evening review sessions last year where I was just giving answers. I'm not doing you any favors. I'm not teaching you how to study. I'm not just simply putting down, that we have 3 questions on the Sue Davis reading. I will hold your hand and tell you exactly what you need to do, but you need to do it. I'm not doing this for you. I'll do it in class. I'll give you the reading. I'll give you feedback on your essay that you write on this. So if you write the wrong thing about civic humanism in your essay, I'll correct it. But anyways, so for this question, if you can define what is civic humanism, what is Lockean liberalism, which of the above does the author believe the Constitution reflected, and then how does she defend her argument, I guarantee you'll get that question right. So that just goes through all 50 of the questions. And again, so there's a question of Washington's administration. Everybody learns at a very young age what the Whiskey Rebellion was. So I can guarantee you'll get question number 8 right from the traditional multiple choice questions. Again, these are the questions that are coming from what we specifically taught in class. Can you answer, why was it problematic, upsetting for farmers to pay a tax? Why did the federal government use the revenue for? Why did this upset the farmers? What happened to the rebels after the rebellion ended? Blah, blah, blah. So if you can answer all of these questions, I guarantee you will get the question right on the test. Okay, so now we've got one more thing here. Oh, wait, I did the same thing for all of our essay tests. So as you'll see in the syllabus, there are 3 essay tests on the AP exam: a short answer question, an SAQ, that's basically what you did for the summer assignment; a long essay question, which is a multi-paragraph essay, introduction, body, concluding paragraph, and then a document-based question. We spend the entire second semester learning the document-based question. Don't worry about it yet. We're not ready for it. We'll spend the entire second semester on it. That is the biggest part of the exam. That is a quarter of the AP test grade. Okay, so let's look at the SAQ. This is our first test. I don't remember the date off the top of my head. It's the end of September. Or actually, I think I moved it to that Monday. I think it's the first Monday in October. Okay, so there are 11 prompts. Each prompt has part A, B, and C. And I gave you up here, a link to a sample response, a sample outline, the rubric. And rather than just list the questions, I gave you some guided questions on here. So I'm not going to do another one with Sue Davis. Okay, that one's really complicated, and I don't want to really use that one first because that might rattle you. Okay, so here's an easy one. Okay, prompt number 3. So briefly explain how one of the components from the American system fostered economic development in the United States. So you're picking one, either the protective tariff, the internal improvement, that's infrastructure, or the creation of a national bank. And so it gives you some guides to be like, okay, if you're studying for this and you're picking protective tariffs, buddy, you better be able to explain protective tariffs from that time. You better talk about the tariff of 1816 was the first protective tariff. You better talk about the massive tariff increases in 1824 and 1828, right? And then finally the compromise tariff of 1832 and 1833. So it just helps you formulate how to study, right? Part B is briefly explain how one of the Supreme Court rulings fostered economic development. So how do you study for this? Identify the case. Make sure you know the court's ruling. Identify the economic development that resulted from the ruling in this case. Because guys, no matter how much I love you, if you don't specifically answer the question, I can barely give you any points. So these annotated guides are to make sure, and again, none of this is collected. We don't do that. These tests are, you can't come in and wing it. You just can't. You have to prepare. And don't worry, I've got one more aid to help you prepare. But you can't just wing this. And if you don't fully answer the question, I can't pass you. So here you go. Like these identified again the economic development that resulted from this court case. Gibbons versus Ogden. Okay, well, now all of a sudden the United States federal government asserts its absolute jurisdiction over interstate commerce on waterways. So then, okay, now I have to make sure, how does the Supreme Court asserting the federal government's jurisdiction on the Hudson River, how does that foster economic development? Well, what's the link between the federal government regulating interstate commerce and issuing licenses to steamboats versus New York and New Jersey banging it out to see who's going to control the Hudson River? And it's pretty intuitive about why it's so much better if there's one uniform system of commerce regulation rather than multiple states. So I created that, and then I did the same thing for your long essay questions. We take two of these multi-paragraph essays. And again, I'm going to skip the first one because it's the Irish and it's kind of long. The first instance of mass immigration. So, okay. Question number 2, how did Southerners defend slavery philosophically during the antebellum era? And so there's hints for the introduction. Like when you write your introduction, you're setting the context for slavery in the American South. Okay. I give you a hint for the thesis. Make sure that you include in your thesis the main idea of how the Southern defense of slavery had changed by this time period. It's the switch from the Jeffersonian wolf by the ears necessary evil argument to the John C. Calhoun and Thomas Dew paternalistic nonsense of slavery is a positive good. And so again, like if you want to answer this question, these are all things that should be included in your essay. And let me give you another example. Okay. I don't want to use the reform one. It's going to be easier here. The manifest destiny. Okay. So question number 5, analyze the causes of the conflict between the Anglo-Texan settlers and the Mexican government, which culminated in the Battle of the Alamo. And with these, I gave you the link to the class notes of everything that we learned here, so you can just click there. I'm not going to open it. But the same thing, okay, with the introduction, like, all right, set the context for manifest destiny. This essay starts with the beginning of the impresario system with the Mexican Land Act of 1821. So that's where you want to set the context for. You don't need any hints for your thesis, but then with your body paragraph, like, okay, why did the Mexican government basically beg Americans to come to Texas? Why did so many Americans want to go to Texas? Then what went wrong? Why did the Mexican government start to become upset with American settlers? Why did the Texan settlers start to become upset with the Mexican government? These are all things that to fully analyze this question, your essay needs to include. So again, I'm not holding another review session in the library or D205 at night and holding your hand and giving you the answers to this. But again, I spent all summer creating these study guides so that you learn how to study. All right, close that out. And then finally, the last support, I made these long-term preparation guides. So let's click the first 9 weeks long-term preparation guide. And you can see, all right. So it tells you when we're finished with everything. Chapter 6 is a little bit weird because we saved Is There a James Madison Problem until that Friday, so you have more time to do it, quite frankly. And we do 2 days of chapter 7 on the 13th and the 14th. But when you get through chapter 6, you can click here and that takes you to all of the stimulus-based multiple choice questions. You can answer all of those. You can answer the first 17 questions of the traditional multiple choice questions. You can now answer the questions for the short answer essay question 1, 4A and B, 5, 6A and B, and 8. Same thing. Chapter 7 is a very short chapter. You can see it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, basically 4.5 class periods. It's Jeffersonian America, the War of 1812. And you can see, okay, Tuesday, 9/19, September 19th, we finished chapter 7. We've gotten all the way through the end of the War of 1812. And now you can answer these stimulus-based multiple choice questions. You can do questions 18, 19, 20, and 21 from the multiple choice, traditional multiple choice questions. And you can do short answer questions 2, 6C, and 11A. And it just takes you through each of these and tells you, hey man, if I want to be successful on the SAQ exam, if I wait until Sunday, October 8th, it's not happening. It's going to be a very bad day on Monday the 9th. So you really need to use these long-term preparation guides. Same thing for the 9 weeks objective exam. You can't wait until the end and try to fill in all of those questions. I'm not doing it for you. I'm not holding review sessions and saying, okay, somebody give me the answer to this. Oh no, oh, okay, here we go. Let's do that. Like, I set it up. Now you have to do it. And these guides tell you, when you should be getting done with each part. In the second 9 weeks, one looks exactly the same. Now we have the LEQ preparation and it tells you what you need to do. So I think that's going to do a lot to meet our goal of long-term studying. I'm trying to stop sharing. There we go. And so hopefully this wasn't too much, but again, I wanted you to just not walk in day one and be surprised. So wanted to show you some of this stuff. And again, looking forward to meeting all of you in just a couple of weeks.